Can you tell me some of the terrible outcomes of that for your own family?
My paternal grandmother had several sisters and one brother who fortunately emigrated to London before the war. This grandmother and one of her sisters were taken to Theresienstadt, where my grandmother died, but this sister of hers, my great aunt, survived and came to live with us after the war until she died of old age. The youngest of these sisters, who was born after their parents' silver wedding anniversary, so she was really a youngster compared to her older sisters. She had two daughters, of whom the elder escaped with her husband to Palestine in 1934. The younger one, she stayed behind, and after we had emigrated in 1937, she married another Jewish person and indeed had a child very late into the Hitler era. This child was born in 1941, and I have a picture of him too. They were taken with her father, that's the husband of this youngest sister, and her husband to Auschwitz, where they were murdered. Now, when my parents, as I related earlier, had come to England to reconnoitre how to get to England in the first place, I was put up with several relatives whilst my parents were away, and I stayed with this younger daughter of the youngest sister of my grandmother. And she was a beautiful girl and really got on well together. She was older than myself. So when I eventually found out that she was murdered, I was particularly sad and distressed about her death and her 4-year-old son called Daniel. Now, fortunately, our elder daughter, Deborah, has 2 children, of whom the elder is called Daniel. But I must admit that it was a coincidence. But every time I see Daniel, which I do fairly frequently, I think of the Daniel who died in Auschwitz.
Out of such terrible events, Rudi, do you feel that there can ever be a legacy of hope?
It depends on whether you've got a faith in God, I suppose, to put it bluntly. A psychiatrist once said, a Jewish psychiatrist once said that it says in the Bible that man was created in the image of God. But this psychiatrist said, no, it should be that God was created in the image of man. In other words, man is the focal point, and man creates God in his mind. And I think there's a lot that can be said for that point of view. Of course, we shall never know, because in the Bible it says God is untouchable. You can't see him, you can't smell him, you can't hear him. He's somewhere up in the sky, in the heavens. But as I say, we shall never know until after our death, and then perhaps not. But there's something in the idea that man is responsible for his own actions. And he's got the potential to be either good or bad. And unfortunately, sometimes the badness in man comes to the surface, and we read about it all the time, both locally and nationally. People thieve things, people get murdered for nothing sometimes. It's a dreadful situation. Schools can teach chemistry and English and mathematics, but they should also teach good manners and how to live properly. I don't think they do. Not in my experience anyway. I assume Sunday school for Christians, they teach the Bible, and the Muslims learn the Quran by heart, which I think would be terrible, because I happen not to be able to learn things by heart, but that's another story. in Cheder, which is a Jewish Sunday school, if you like, they're taught Bible stories and the story about the festivals, but I don't think they're taught how to be good human beings. And I think if this were instituted, it would make a lot of difference to many people, perhaps not all, but to many.